We're not dead.
We're not dead. I've been flirting with it. It feels like. So anyway, hello everybody. I've had COVID now for 2 weeks. Don't get it. I know it's like dumb because we've been in this plague for 2 years now, but I'd managed to avoid it. Finally, it's actually Michelle's parents were staying at their place, and they came back from a cruise of all places and brought it back, which is predictable. We did everything we could to avoid it, and it happened. So, but it's been rough. I still can basically do like an hour or two of normal human stuff, and then I pass out, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Like we're in the midst of this pandemic. We've been going longer than the pandemic, you and I. Quite a lot
true
on this show. But it kind of seemed like things were, rebalancing themselves and things are okay. But I went up to visit my brother, out east in Eastern Ontario. And then I was going to go up and visit some friends of mine in Ottawa and maybe, connect with some of those people that we know. And my friend mailed and he's like, I'm sorry, dude, I got to cancel like tomorrow because like we just came down with COVID. So it's real. It's still out there. Things are still happening. It's funny. Like you must feel really bizarre telling people that you can't do a meeting because you have COVID. That's so like 2021, not 2022,
for real, right? Yeah. It's lame. It's lame.
So
yeah.
No, I'm glad you feel better. And, we did take a week off and hopefully we'll be back on a little bit more of a regular bull market basis over the next week or two. Right. And we've got some pretty cool guests already that we had rescheduled. But you decided about, maybe 2 weeks ago or so that you wanted to do this thing where you were going to interview 100 awesome people. So maybe you tell us a little bit about that. Like what's the impetus? What's the point of that? Because we're kind of flipping from, interviewing projects, which is where we started, to like interviewing awesome people in the space. And I think that's a good move, right? Rather than just covering an NFT project or thing here and there, which is still important. We can do that. I think it's the people that are building these projects, the people that are experimenting with this technology that's kind of important. And to me, I don't know about it, but it kind of seems like to me, this is kind of where you're headed towards in terms of the type of people that you want to talk to, right?
Yeah. So I mean, like, we've been rigging everything for crypto winter, right? And like you've been through this, we went through a lot of the last one together and stuff, and so, we're building a ton of stuff with Uplift, like kind of having to rebuild everything from the ground up. Not kind of, we're literally having to rebuild everything from the ground up. A lot of really cool things happening with like, mind test stuff coming out and new game loops coming out, blah, blah, blah. We're doing a lot of different things. The DAO is crunching. So we've got all that stuff going on. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, in this new sort of environment where, obviously, like we can't just drop a sale and have it do well. Like the Ethereum thing, pretty much taught us that, right? So it's just different market conditions. What is the most impact that I can personally have on the Uplift and its future, right? So we're doing all this stuff in the background, and we're in the DAO discussions, and I'm working with the team all the time, yada yada. But for me, the thing that created the Uplift in the first place was, interviewing everybody that I had interviewed before we started doing it together, and then all the interviews that we did together. And this is before, like, I had the idea, like I had the sense that you could embed crypto in Minecraft before they got real pissy about that, right? But I knew it was possible, right? But then I started learning about NFTs through interviews like this, and managed to put together the understanding that, okay, all the pieces to accomplish what the Uplift became are just out there. We can just build that. And that came from, doing interviews. So I wanted to set a goal for myself to, talk to 100 people as quickly as we possibly could, like amazing people, because we have them in our network, right? And, reconnect with a lot of people, continue to build amazing relationships with some of the most amazing people we've met already. And go out and create new ones, with some of the ecosystems that we're getting into, whether it's the New Moon accelerator that we're part of. We haven't, interviewed everybody there yet. And now we can talk about it publicly. we got into the IBM Hyperprotect Accelerator. And so we're working with a cohort of pretty hardcore businesses there. And I'm going to get access to some pretty amazing people in the IBM sort of ecosystem, but very specifically, a lot of projects that are focused on artificial intelligence, because A, I am super fascinated with that anyway, and B, like I very honestly see, in the same way that I saw NFTs and crypto and Minecraft being able to be blended into a metaverse that is persistent and lasts for a long time. Before the peak of the next bull market, I think there's going to be some element of artificial intelligence mapped into the metaverse, and I think it could be in a bunch of different ways. So the ability that we can actually just go in and interview these badasses. Worst case scenario, we're developing relationships that have traditionally redounded to really good things for the Uplift. Best case scenario, we create the kind of partnerships that take everything that we're doing to a level that nobody can even see yet. So yeah, that's why I want to do that. Chad's in the comments right now on LinkedIn. Freaking love you. Thanks for popping into my first show in 2 weeks. I am heavily caffeinated and still barely conscious. It's not good. Jimmy, you're muted, Jimmy.
Yeah, so that there's a bunch of people came over to my place, family and friends, the other day, and I actually had a
sorry,
non-private conversation with kind of a person that is like one of the top people in Canada in terms of what she's doing in her industry in finance, right? And it was quite interesting because even my brother was talking about Ethereum and like people, but her thing was like, I can't sell this. I can't do it, right? And it's interesting to see this because people are starting to pay attention to crypto, but we are in a bear market again, and there's this understanding of like, what are we going to do? And I think we're going to see this. We're going to see projects that come into the bull market that try to replicate the same success that they had in the last bull market, and didn't quite maybe put away enough money or didn't maybe save enough money to be able to get them through. But I think where we're going to see the industry excel the most are the people that are doing something different, right? The people that are plugging in new things, right? Like AI is going to be one of those things. We haven't really seen very much. We just started to see like some AI trickled NFT art and things like that moving in. There was no push or focus towards that. Like the last bull market was all about DeFi. It wasn't the first time we had seen DeFi in a bull market, but it was all about DeFi and it was all about NFTs, right? And like, it's great. I mean, I've got a whole closet full of NFTs that won't collect dust because they're digital, but that's the only difference between artwork that I buy in the real world that doesn't make it, right? If there's no use case for that artwork, if I'm not, don't get me wrong, there's lots of collectors out there that would love to hang a Mona Lisa, in a storage room just for bragging rights to say, hey, I own a Mona Lisa, but I mean, I could put a BAYC Bored Ape on my profile picture on Twitter and pretend that I had it hanging in a back room. Nobody would really know, right? I don't have to tell people my wallet. We have this kind of weird scenario or system whereby everything is known, but nobody knows who you are, right? And so I'm kind of excited to see, how projects like IBM, how projects like Microsoft, even Facebook to a certain extent, like how they actually plug themselves into it, right? Like Facebook could be ridiculously successful, or they could be the biggest flop of all time, right? Like, metaverse might have to, because they basically bought a name for a shit ton of money, and if they don't figure out a way to make it work, right?
The thing, I would highly recommend anyone. There's a lot of these nagging articles on Zuckerberg and how much money he's spending on metaverse. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Over the last 2 years, he was one of the first people that I saw, other than us at Uplift, because we actually beat Facebook to the metaverse punch by about a year, whatever, it's fine. We had a little bit less funding. Anyway, so he was saying that it has to be a persistent world where you can feel present while doing things with other people. And there's a lot of people that sort of co-opt the word metaverse and make it kind of, mean whatever they want. To me, if it's not a digital place that is persistent, that I can change, And to me, that means, ownership, because that's the only way to protect it, right? That's one of the things that Facebook, I think, is going to get wrong, just because they're not equipped really necessarily for this kind of thinking. But he's got that general sense, right? And what he's spending all these billions of dollars on that nobody's seeing the effect yet is the technology, the actual, like, the wires and guts of how to turn, a Quest 2 into something that feels a lot more like Ready Player One, that has, a lower body tracking, and, like, he's literally going into the technological, physical guts of how to make this experience, more interesting. And I think that's technology we're all going to benefit from, no matter what, which is really good. But I think it's a strong ROI bet for them, even if we can't see how they're going to make money from it yet. Now, I love that we have come at it from a totally different direction, right? Like, we're not coming at it from flashy graphics. We're not coming at it from, obviously, from like a doing heavy R&D on, like, physical gear to make the experience more interesting. We're taking off the shelf parts and making engaging experiences, and creating, frankly, like, historical places for people to go and visit and build experiences and build memories, right? Somebody asking, as it just came up, we put up billboards in the Uplift for a lot of different things, different projects or whatever, right? So the new marketing committee wants to put a bunch up or what have you. And NKY, who's big in that area, was like, hey, we're going to put up a bunch of billboards in the original cathedral. I'm like, no, you're fucking not. Right? I had, like, an instantaneous reaction. That place is, like, legitimately sacred to me.
Yeah.
Right. And that goes for, I think there's a lot of other people that feel that same way. Now, granted, like, after we had that conversation, I had that, like, really visceral reaction, which I think is just a clue for how people are coming to feel about these sort of places where they're creating these memories with people. Right. And that's why it's so special to me. But the second after I got off that conversation, I was like, actually, there's a price. I mean, somebody could hit me with a number that would be so beneficial to the Uplift that I would have to say yes.
But we already kind of toyed around with it in a way. I mean, that's how the whole Portal Hub got designed, and there were billboards outside and things like that. So I thought it was funny, your knee-jerk reaction. But, I mean, and so for me, right, like, as an educator, as a designer, it's funny because I'm thinking about this, right, and I'm thinking about the fallback, non-crypto fallback. I'm thinking about the fallback of online education. And it was everyone I talked to in Japan, the university was okay. I mean, my university seemed okay. A lot of the professors that were teaching alongside of me hated it, but my students loved it. Maybe I was just lucky, or, maybe I did something right. But I keep thinking about this, and it's like, we had this opportunity, we had this chance to kind of push people into this online learning environment, because out of necessity, we had no choice. We couldn't have kids going to school and doing that, right? And we completely screwed the dog on it. We completely botched it. I mean, it was horrible. You've got 4 kids in one house trying to use 3 different iPads to try to connect with their teacher as their teacher is basically giving them homework. And it was ridiculous, right? And if we want something that actually is comparable to real world education, we need a space to do it in. We need a virtual classroom. We don't need a virtual a virtual document that anyone can read and download and do a bunch of homework at home. We need an actual place, an actual space where students can get together, where they can converse, where they can learn, right? We need a metaverse, things like this, right? Like, we witnessed a big transition, I think, from a mainstream business perspective, when we started doing, Zoom calls and things like that, right? Like, even pre-Zoom, like we were doing, virtual business meetings and things like that. But even then there was a problem, right? Even then it was kind of like the majority of people would rather go and meet somebody in person, right? But we're not there yet, right? And so I think this is going to be the big pull for the metaverse, right? Like, gaming's going to be huge, right? That might usher it in. But what happens when there's a virtual showroom that you can actually walk around in and pick stuff up, right? Like the fashion. You were talking about IBM, like and New Moon. many of the projects that we have had on our show have been fashion oriented or art oriented, and like virtual galleries. The Meta Art Club, for example, right? Like they've got virtual art galleries in 3 or 4 different metaverses, right? They've partnered with some great projects. I think some really well-known projects. They've been at some really big art shows, right? They're Asian based. They're industry leaders as people that have all kind of come together to create this concept of the Meta Art Club, which is great. And we've seen the same thing, right? Like projects on Ethereum who are looking at fashion, and you can actually download. You can't do it in Minecraft, right? But I do believe that at some point we will expand beyond Minecraft or Minetest into various forms that tailor everything, which is what I'm most excited about of what we're building in the Uplift, right? Like we always had the biggest problem that we ever had in the Uplift was proximity audio. It was really difficult thing to figure out. It was a really difficult thing to implement, right? Like there's a huge amount of resources that were needed in order just to get the thought off the ground, right? Like there were so much more easy lifts, right? But what if you have an Uplift world metaverse where your NFT key actually plugs you into a world where proximity audio exists, because that's what you need for business or that thing, right? All of these different things, right? And I think rather than trying to build a one metaverse fits all solution, I think the key is to have a bunch of little metaverses that can capitalize upon one thing, right? Like that can do that, right? And I think we're going to see that in the next decade or so, right? Like we're not going to have
5 years, because that, right? And I've been thinking a lot about where we're headed next, and sort of like the pieces that have matured enough to start integrating into what we're doing to create. I mean, that's why we're talking about artificial intelligence. Like the open source language engines are shockingly good, and most people don't know about it yet, right? So the ability to incorporate that into a game and to do interesting things like that, like it's that sort of stuff that I think we can. The Lego pieces are basically baked enough that we can put those things together. Now, granted, like pretty soon, stuff like spatial, attaching that to an NFT in a meaningful way, right? Like right now, it's not there enough so that we can plug it into the way our metaverse works just yet. But I think stuff like that could be inevitable, right? And getting into the higher end graphics like Unreal 5, and then eventually getting into actual VR, like all that stuff is inevitable, right? And to your point, because of the way we're doing things with NFTs, that gives us, like, our network can be upgraded over and over and over again. So the NFTs that we own will be able to be functional, in thing after thing after thing, or at least we can because I think we're going to have separate NFTs for the first Minetest iteration, as an example, right? But like owning land is the best way to get that stuff. Like our network will always be able to evolve into having people be able to jump technological rungs with us as we go.
Well, and I think different people have different ideas on it, and there might be a little bit of pushback from some people on the idea that we're not porting existing worlds right away over to Minetest. But like my personal perspective on that is I kind of think that's a good thing, right? Because with Minetest, what we have is the ability to actually custom tailor a Minecraft world in a sense, which we never really had that ability to do before, right? Like it's open source software. So there's so many, like before we were using plugins and a bunch of other things, right? But like this is open source. So like we're doing things, or we're able to do things in Minetest, especially if you're geniuses like our good friend Gary the architect, right? You're able to actually like plug in things where you can change signs without destroying them. Like how dumb and simple is that? But that's something that we would have probably never been able to do in Minecraft, right? Like we can custom tailor these things. And so I think launching a custom tailored world that goes in tandem with the people who are working their tails off to test this thing, DAO members. Mitzi's another one, Devona's another one. Like there's tons of people in the events committee, there's tons of people in the builder committee. Mickey's heading, and these people are doing a really good job at like going in there and testing out things and like even making like documents and spreadsheets on missing blocks and things like that, right? Like it's really amazing. So I think once this world launches, this will give us a much better idea on how to do it. And there's some really interesting scenarios. Like the timing on this I'm not sure about, but like what happens if that happens, I'm not saying it will, but what happens if that happens to coincide with the launch of a world DAO? I mean maybe Borvalis and Swineland look completely different with a custom mine test mod than Uplift or than London, right? And I'm not saying any of this will happen or we're going to have the resources or the time dedicated towards, right? Like the more community members we have testing these things out, the better. So, if you're out there, and give us a hand, right? But like, there's some really interesting possibilities there for sure.
Yeah, and I think people are going to see too, like what we have planned right now, and this has all been based off of DAO votes, right? So like this is all community driven. With the mine test launch, it's a totally different way to do active rewards, right? We're gonna have like sheep and like mineable stuff, and it's all gonna be rendered down to NFTs, and you'll be able to swap those NFTs for Upliftium. Like we're changing things up based off of things that have really worked for a lot of other games. Excuse me, hold on, say something interesting.
Well, so I thought like for me what I liked about I mean, there's a couple ways to think about this. I don't think that Minecraft NFTs are a dead end. Like I think at some point they're going to be like, oh wait, now we're ready to release shit. So yeah, right? They're pulling back the train to catch up, right? And those worlds
haven't enforced anything, and I don't think they ever will, right? Like that's like our Minecraft worlds aren't going anywhere. They're still active. There's always a possibility that we could bring some gamification back to it, but it's not a priority for us, right? Like we can't trust them to be cool about this shit, so we're moving on to greener pastures. But as far as like developing new stuff, but like as far as like the safety of all of my builds in Minecraft, those are all still there. And I think the next thing that's gonna happen there, and we don't have any plans for this yet, but it's just like I think it's inevitable. Having a service where you can burn some Upliftium and get your build as an object file just makes sense to me, right? Like it's that kind of thing has proven just exceptionally successful for projects like Void. I mean, DGen, you have your NFT, but you can like download the 3D file of it or what have you, right? Like all the things are there for us to be able to do something like that as well. And I really dig that, right? It just means that like no matter what, our Minecraft iteration is there to stay. You can get your build out of, and people can figure out how to do that on their own, by the way, if they want to. But like that, we've got that as capability. And then down the road, the pressure will ramp up for us to be able to have ways for you to paste, into new areas, right? And that might not be mine test, just because the first and biggest priority for us in the new mine test worlds, I think they're all going to be survival, and they're all going to be very, very gamified, right? So we're going to be really, really careful with the kinds of blocks and materials that can be brought in. Again, just because we're going to be first and foremost protecting the game economy in those areas. But it's only a matter of time before we're in something like Unreal 5, doing something meaningful, right? And again, like maybe not soon, but again, like that. So I saw a couple people in the thing that were like all worried about their builds and stuff getting completely and totally flattened. Like somebody voiced a crazy idea about like just starting everything from scratch, right? And we love crazy ideas, but like no one is knocking the tower down. They would have to fight me physically for that, right? Like that's just not going to happen. But again, we're testing out all sorts of crazy ideas, right?
And what I love about this actually is that like maybe you want to knock your own tower down, maybe you do want to start from scratch, and that's fine.
You could, right?
That's great. Yeah, for you. We already have a mechanism to be able to do that. You can go in and you can essentially burn your land, and you can get shards re-released.
Well, I think this is less about the creative worlds and more about creating like brand new gamification in the Minecraft survival zones, right? And so there's like some sort of economic merit in zeroing everything out, but there's just like there's too many memories, too many special places to even consider that. Too much work has gone into it. to really make that viable. But again, like it's important for us to feel in the DAO really open to throwing out every crazy idea that we come up with and then testing those things out. And that would never pass a vote, but it was an interesting conversation for sure.
Well, nobody should ever listen to my crazy ideas, but one of the reasons I like hanging out with you is like I like to throw them out, right? But like this is the thing, right? Like I like to speculate, right? Like I'm the chess player who loses because I die because I can't make a decision because I'm looking at all of the plays down the road 10 moves in advance, right? But like it's interesting, right? Like how many jobs are available like in Canada right now and probably in the States and in most of the first world that people don't want to work because it doesn't make sense because they can't make any money, and then we're complaining that we don't have jobs, and everyone's entitled. And if you're looking at it from a crypto space, I think my personal belief is it's 100 or 1,000 times worse. Everyone who's in crypto right now who isn't building, a lot of people who are in crypto right now, not the people who are still here in the bear market working and connecting with projects, right? But like everyone who's gone, everyone who left after the money kind of dried up for the next however many months, like 6 to 18 months, right? All of those people, right? They're ridiculously entitled. And I'm starting to get tired of it, Corey. Like I really am. I'm starting to get tired of everyone wanting something for free, right? And so I'm looking at this and, one of my biggest things, and I keep coming back to this over and over and over again, it might not ever happen, but I would love an NFT that would plug us into 5, 10, 15 different metaverses, but I wouldn't give it to everybody for free. You're going to have to go in there. You're going to have to do something. You're going to have to spend some upliftium to be able to upgrade that NFT to another world, right? I mean, I don't.
This is where having the single NFTs for those, I love that idea, but it makes more sense and it's more dynamic,
right?
If we separate them out, right? Mm-hmm. So, but having that initial land NFT, I mean, that's like the stuff we haven't finalized this yet, right? But that first mind test world is probably going to be, shards based, right? Mm-hmm. So you can recycle old land. Into shards. You can do that right now if you want to, right? If you have land that you just want to get rid of, you can turn shards, and you're going to be able to blend shards into new land or into new land in Mindtest, right? And we might incorporate some Upliftium. I hope we do anyway, into those blends to create some use case for Upliftium, yada yada, right? So it's like it really does make more sense to have new NFTs being spawned out from the old ones. But yeah, that's to the point. Like that network is it's really all the marbles to me, right? And we are really down to the vast majority of people that we're interacting with in game and in the Discord these days. Like they're hyper diehards, right? And they're the people that, quite frankly, if they're still around when the actual bull market starts back up again, they're going to benefit, I think, a great deal from that.
And we're going to benefit from having them around the whole bear market too, right? And so there's
infinitely, right?
Right. There's an interesting test case that has already been put into effect that I'm not sure even about, Corey, but the crunks were on the Terra blockchain, which failed miserably. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, but good luck, Do Kwon, because you don't have a passport, you don't have a home, and people want to throw you in jail. So,
he's got enough money to hang out in a non-extradition country for the rest of his life. It'd be pretty.
Well, we think. I mean, according to him, the accounts that Binance and a couple other exchanges blocked were never his money to begin with. But
sure.
But it's interesting to see this come about. We've actually never really seen a case like this. I think the closest case that we ever saw was who is the Bitcoin guy back in the day who's still in prison? I always forget his name. Ross Albright or something, right? That's probably the biggest case. So if they ever right, like even Fake Toshi's not in jail, right? So if they ever throw
Fake Toshi, that Craig, right?
Yeah. Even if they throw them in jail, it'd be interesting to see what happens. But anyway, we had speaking of awesome projects, we've had them on the show a couple times. One Planet, worked over on Terra and ported the 50 top projects essentially in their minds. It was a quite big interview project. I was in a couple groups where I saw the the process of them getting ported over, and like they weren't messing around. They weren't just taking anyone, like, right? Like they were doing some serious stuff. Everyone's KYC'd, like there's no anonymous members of any teams. Like everything was done like properly, like by the book, right? Like in a very similar way, I think that we did. Like some people would complain about the Uplift, you know, back in the day before all this Minecraft stuff. It's like, well, why don't you just do this? Why don't you just do this? Well, that in a sense might have saved us because we did follow their EULA, right? Like we did follow the end user agreement, which like even if they do come later, we're pretty sure, you know, it's
they're
out
not
there.
coming for us.
We're right, I know,
yeah.
but even
they'd have to change the rules again to come after us, because explicitly what they said we have never done, right? Exactly. But at the same time, like the reason why we're not doing any future development on Minecraft stuff right now is that like they could just change the rules at any time, and their sense of it is clearly wrong. Their understanding it is clearly wrong. There's just like there's like a basic risk analysis on that. It's like, hey, we can keep continuing to move this because they're very likely to not come at us, and they're like in this current iteration not going to find fault with anything that we're doing. But like we want to do some really interesting shit with crypto and NFTs. Fucking mind test is the way to go, right? We can do whatever the fuck we want, and we're going to do it all. It's just a lot more engaging. And again, like the graphics are only going to get better. I saw this thing where they're running a mind test rate through Stable Diffusion, like in real time, right? So this guy was like, yeah, I'll send you the video on it. This guy's like building a little house or whatever. And it's not like from a game platform, I think we're really far away from being able to do this, but I think it's there, right? So whether it's a year from now, 2 years from now, you could be running a plugin like the plugins that we would attach to Minecraft, right? Only you could put in like keywords and completely and totally change the visual thing in real time and randomly based on artificial intelligence based off your cute little blocks, right? So you're building the Lego version, and in real time, anyone that comes there is seeing it however they want to see it. It's going to be like a psychedelic dream world, and I think that's inevitable, right? So like starting on Mindtest, starting where people can build, starting where people can play. I mean, that's why I always kind of default to doing that, right? Like Unreal is amazing. Can I put one block on top of another day one as a new player? If the answer is no, I kind of not in, right? Like that's the thing that I think, you know, gives us the staying power to, you know, constantly create an engaging thing that anyone, like 5-year-olds, can come in and play in that universe, right? But the graphics are going to catch up to it in a way that I don't think anyone's prepared for, and we're going to be able to ride that train, I think.
Yeah, I got a little bit sidetracked there, but I do want to finish this one thought because, you know, nice tangent. But so what happened with the Krunks was quite interesting, right? Because they decided to port Krunks over, but you actually had to take an action to do that, right? So there's still a whole bunch of Krunks sitting on the Terra blockchain, right? Now, probably Terra is not going to happen, but we have seen some price movement in Terra. So what happens if Terra does make that crazy miraculous comeback where it's actually a usable blockchain again, and the 90% of their people have ported those things over, right? 90% of the people have ported those things over to Polygon, but those NFTs on Terra still exist. Now, my mind instantly went to, our 8 worlds plus, our 2 collab lands with our planet. But my mind instantly went to our 8 worlds on Wax. What happens when 80% of the people decide to shard those lands, kill them, destroy them, move over to Mindtest, and then something happens whereby, there is a resurgence in Minecraft gameplay with NFTs because some other document has come out? How much are those lands worth, right? Like from a historical perspective, even not even a financial perspective, from a historical perspective, how much is that cathedral or that build or that Power First Portal Hub worth, right? Like
picking the I could see an economic interest in picking up all of the, cause like I sweep land floors every so often just because, right? But I can see an economic interest in like knowing that we are going to pass as a DAO a mechanism whereby I can have a plot and a build and turn that into a 3D object, and also, right, we're going to get one-on-one NFTs figured out at some point, right? So not only do I have a plot of land, but I have a build on it, and that build is a 3D object that's downloadable, and it's represented as a one-on-one NFT, right? So if you're an artist, if you're like a Minecraft artist, whatever, you could create 1,000 of those, and make a couple $100,000 running into the next bull market. Selling one-on-one pieces of 3-dimensional art that are in a persistent metaverse, right? Like nobody's doing that. They could. Right now, we don't have that stuff done, but I think that's inevitable. And you could buy some fucking DAO token and make us do it.
Remember when people were buying up land, building a house, and creating like chests that they would drop a bunch of resources in, and then putting them on the market for people who didn't want to go in there and build themselves. Like this is like the next reiteration of that, right? Like that's
that's for the survival worlds, right? And the survival world is still going. There's still an economy there, right? And it's running on Upliftium. People are creating shops. People are buying and selling stuff. It's kind of for fun right now, right? Because we're not doing the active rewards. People aren't like making money or making Upliftium from that, right? There's gonna be other ways to do it. It just is, right?
And the galleries are still top notch there, right? Whether you got the walkabouts that are happening. I think on Wednesdays, there's a gallery tour that's happening. I think once a month. There's still a ton of events that are happening in there, right? Like they're not dead by any means. They're probably in some ways more active than they ever were, in terms of like a community actually getting together and sharing space, right? Like a lot of times in worlds, I mean, it was great. You got to go in there, you got to explore, you got to find your own resources. But for the most part, I mean, with the exception of a couple events, in the early days, a lot of times you were in there by yourself and you wouldn't see anyone. Somebody would drop by a horse, right? But now we've got all these events where all these people are getting together on a weekly basis. Just pop into the Discord and you can see, and they're hanging out and they're doing stuff. And right now it's across 2 platforms, right? It's across Mindtest and it's across Minecraft. So definitely, if you want to put your galleries, events and things like that for tours on the list, you can still do that. Go get in touch with the events committee and have a gallery tour of your art gallery in the Uplift world on Minecraft. Like that's totally cool, right? And we love it. Like we think that that's going to be great, right? Like
this I keep going back to this, Jimmy. Like remember the projects that, like in the last bear market, projects weren't like around grinding, doing events. They just fucking disappeared, right? Like almost no one was doing anything at all, and every single week you have articles coming out, right? Like when I'm not trying to die from fucking COVID, we're putting shows out, right? And just go your entire right. Like the staff, like the team chat in the Discord is on fire. The DAO discussion channel in the Discord is nonstop.
Right,
nonstop on ideas and testing things out and iterating. It's like it's magical, and we don't always agree, and that's perfect, right? But it's the vast majority of the time very constructive. And the general chat, to your point, like the events are going crazy all the time, like that. I am unbelievably grateful because we haven't done gratitudes yet today. For the core community that believes in it. It's actually another thing that Zuckerberg said when they, were first doing the whole, social media thing, right? He flat out says like the reason they beat MySpace is because they cared more, right? And I think being able to try to build something meaningful and very, very long term out of the Uplift with this core community is just it's just a massive gift. Because we really can build it from here into something that I think we're all going to be really proud of. Because the people that are here now care a ton. Where like tons of projects are just going to disappear, and again, like the vast majority of projects in the last bear market just did. They were just gone. There wasn't anything going on at all. And we've got like a really good, consistent level of grind that's going to produce results, which is well.
I find out I have trouble. One of my biggest problems in life is trying not to make fun of Walmart. But like the Walmart slogan, it's like buy more, save more, or something like that. I can't even remember what it is. It's really bad. Like I kind of think like the the new Uplift slogan should be build more, wine less, right? Like that's like of course, we're not going to do it, but like essentially, like this is what I see.
Right? Sometimes,
right? like it. I think, yeah, I'm grateful for our community too. I'm actually, just thinking about that. I probably do need to write an article that is a little bit of a perspective piece, because I actually want to see people who are actually interested in working more for an official capacity of the Uplift to be able to do that, right? Like, I almost want to have a petition form where, if you want to join a committee, then there's an easy way to reach out to the committee leaders, right? Because I think we still need it, right? Like, if you want to write articles about builds or things that are happening in the Uplift, like, I would love to not be the only person that's publishing things on our site, right? Like, if you want to go in and host committee events, or Coliseum PvP events, I'm sure Sam would love to take a week off and let somebody else do it, right? And it's good for the community. It's good for the perspective. It's good for the camaraderie, right? So I think if you are out there and you are still invested and you are active in the DAO channel or in any of these other community channels, and you have ideas for events and you want to host them, like, definitely get in touch, right? Like, I think Corey and I would be more than happy to hand over the reins to the channel setup. Let you come on here and do a live, showing of your own builds or something like that, right? For community members we trust, obviously, right? Like, but yeah, I think
like as an example, Alien Worlds launched their World DAOs after a long fucking time. That has been the actual point of Alien Worlds since the beginning. We've had Max Idveld on a couple times talking about that, and we were talking to him about DAOs before Alien Worlds existed. And Lisa Chandler's friend of the show, friend of the fam, is I think going to be taking over the channel to do some interviews with people that are running for office on those things, which I absolutely love. But yeah, I think that having this channel for the people in our ecosystem that are just bringing good, we want to amplify everything they're doing, just because it's only ever going to be good for our people too. So, all right, I think I'm gonna go cry now.
No,
by cry,
I mean, we'll be back this week, and sometime, if you're out there and you're listening and you want to come join us because you're an awesome person, or you want to nominate an awesome person, get in touch, because we'd love to have you.
Yeah.
One, both.
Yeah.
Of us, whatever.
Apparently, I'm getting better. Your signal's great today, Jimmy. Like that was good.
Right. I don't know what happened. I guess it's okay.
Woo-hoo.
Nice, bright, sunny day. High of 19 with a half cornfield beside us. All of you enjoy, and we'll talk to you later, because, yeah, you guys are flipping awesome.